Good morning. I've been talking about Abraham's life because if you're going to become who God intends, the Holy Spirit will bring you along the same path as Abraham, and you're going to make the same mistakes. God's design for you is for you to be fully you. Whatever role He has you in, you are to shine. But to shine, the film or scum that covers the awareness part of you and keeps you in the dark about who you are needs to be removed. And this is what the story of Abraham is about. Through the stages of faith, hope, and love, God slowly yet decisively scrubbed away the Abraham that Abraham had created and revealed the Abraham God imagined from eternity. In each stage, God does something different. In the faith stage, God's great hope is that the specific seed He's continually sowing into your life would finally find receptive soil in your soul. When you come to the Lord, whether you have a healthy self-image or an unhealthy one, it's not the image that God has of you, not what He designed you to be. Isaiah says that every valley shall be raised up, and every mountain shall be made low. So whether you have a terrible self-image or a great one, God has to mess with it so you can begin to see yourself through His eyes. And it took Abraham decades before he finally believed who God said he was. But once he did, he entered the hope stage where the seed now received is to find deep root within you. It's during this period of time that God changes you. And change always begins with self-awareness. Let me use Peter as an example before I talk about my journey. When Peter was met by Jesus for the first time, Jesus read his mail. And like Peter, Jesus knew exactly who he was getting. When he chose Peter, he knows exactly who he's getting when he chose you. And he said to Peter, Simon, you are Simon, the son of John, but you will be called Peter. What Jesus was telling Simon was, look, Simon, you're just like your old man John, full of bluster, full of emotion, but you're going to be as solid as a rock because you're going to be just like me. You're going to be a chip off of the real rock. And for 3 years, Simon acted like he was Peter, the rock. But more times than not, Simon was just full of himself. Too much Simon. Jesus even directly told Peter that he was full of it. Think about that for a moment. Jesus telling Peter to his face that he was wrong. And Peter did what you do when your faux sense of yourself is threatened. Well, what do you do? Really, what do you do? We protect our sense of self at all costs, and that can run the gamut from attacking others to shutting down. This is a manifestation of self-righteousness, and we all have it. And it shows that the you God made is so precious, you will do whatever it takes to protect it. So for 3 years, Peter protected himself until, in the moment of testing, Peter failed big time as Jesus knew he would. Luke records that at the moment of betrayal, their eyes met, and the scales fell from Peter's eyes, and he knew. This is the first time Peter had any self-awareness. I am just like my old man. I am an empty suit. And he wept bitterly. He thought that this was the end. He could have done the Judas thing, but he just did what Peter usually did, which is sulk and beat himself up. But this was the beginning of Peter becoming right in God. It's where you know that you are. You don't need to defend yourself. You're not trying to convince anyone of anything. You just are. So Peter began to be changed by the Lord, and the Lord has done the same thing for me. I have a friend who used to call me Too Much Tom. I thought it was a compliment, but as I've thought about it, maybe not so much. I came to the Lord early. I'm not sure the moment in time because I grew up a Lutheran and they just assume you are if you're baptized and confirmed. But I know I loved God and I wanted Him. It was after my marriage, however, that my world fell apart because within a month of getting married, it was falling apart. I got married thinking that I would have the perfect marriage because I would be the perfect husband. But it didn't take long for me to have that reality check. I saw that I wasn't, and that devastated me. And my marriage was falling apart, and that devastated me. I saw for the first time that I was just like my dad, with whom I had an adversarial relationship. To that point, if you would have said to me, "You're just like your dad," I would have said, "No way." But I realized that the way Nancy and I were interacting was the exact same way he did with my mom. And there I stood exposed. My illusion about myself was over. And as an aside, if you are disillusioned, it might just be you have the wrong illusion. But that moment of clarity and honesty started both me and Nancy on a journey with the Lord. And over the years, He has changed both of us in our marriage. And I call it now a perfected marriage and getting better. There was another moment of self-awareness that changed me big time. I'm sharing about self-awareness now, and knowing that you can't work it up. You can't create self-awareness, but it's possible not to recognize these God encounters. Beloved, self-awareness and God awareness are often coincidental. When Peter finally connected with Jesus, he knew that he was broken. And isn't it interesting that Peter went to church all the time and prayed, and I'm sure repented, but never really connected honestly with the Lord until this moment? And that should give you both desperation and hope. So I was getting my master's in counseling in the 90s, and part of taking the course was for me to be counseled myself. And my sessions with the professor that I was being counseled by consisted of this. I would sit down, and he would ask me a question, and then he would do this. Or he'd do... And that was the extent of the counseling session. Now, I know some of you might just get annoyed at that, and you'd say, "What the heck are you doing?" But for me, I was unnerved. I couldn't get my bearings. I stammered and I stuttered. But after 3 or 4 sessions, it hit me. I was getting my juice from others. If you were interested in me and what I was saying, I'd be engaged. If you didn't seem interesting, I would shut down. And I can't tell you that I did anything different, but I began to change. And you may or may not like me now. I don't know. But I do know that God has given me a voice. I'm no longer an echo. Now, next time I want to talk a little bit more about what God used to change me in my marriage. And I want to start unpacking the story of Too Much Paul. Until next time.